All right, so plant breeding, a numbers game. Does this look familiar to you? Gordon is a plant breeder, yeah. and I'm sure there are a number of you in the room who are as well. It's a numbers game. This is a photo that Ravi Singh took in the Simmet nurseries. A variety is a package of good genes. Single genes for rust resistance are vulnerable. Multi-genic resistance is best for durability. But how do we get those genes together? How can we put 4 or 5 genes together? Every time we add another gene that we want to select for, the population size increases by a certain factor. The more genes you're trying to select for, the more plants you need to have. So molecular biology can help us refine that and hopefully be more targeted with our resistance breeding. And we're doing this particularly with new approaches, transgenic approaches to rust control. So you can think of this like a game of cards, okay? If you've ever played, I think this is poker, the chances of getting a royal flush are 1 in 649,739. So you want to get a royal flush, you're going to have to sit through 650,000 hands of poker to get dealt a royal flush. But if we take those 5 cards out of the deck and stick them all together and put them back into the deck and then start dealing, our odds are reduced to 1 in 48, right? That's what we're doing with transgenic approaches to rust resistance. What we're doing is we're trying to take, for example, 5 independent genes out of the wheat genome, clone them, stick them together and put them back in. And then they get inherited as a single unit. All right, so that reduces the odds enormously of getting those 5 genes will always be inherited together.
1B, 1R.
This is what happens when you have Gordon's just said 1B, 1R. So we see this on alien translocated segments that don't recombine with wheat. They're what you would call transgenic approaches. But what we're doing here is a cisgenic approach. We're taking genes out of wheat and putting them back into wheat. But what we're doing is we're taking them from different parts of the genome, sticking them together and putting them back in. So that instead of being inherited as 5 independent genes and having to look at odds of 650,000, we can stick them together and reduce those odds. And that then allows the breeder to be able to focus on more complex traits like yield.
As a cassette we generally refer to.
As a cassette. So this is what we call gene cassette technology approach. Trying to isolate genes from the genome, stick them together in a cassette and then transform them back into wheat so they're inherited together. How do we do that? Well, I don't know where my phone is, but see this guy here? This is 20 years ago. Now, all that's what you find in a smartphone. Technological advances are occurring, we know this, they're occurring really, really quickly. We're continually told how fast computer technology is developing, and it is staggering to think that in 20 years we've gone from that to an iPhone. But guess what? And they say that computer power doubles every 2 years. So that's an unbelievable rate of gain in technology, isn't it? But guess what? In genome sequencing, the technology is developing even quicker. So this is just a graph that I've taken off the internet. Back in 2001, this is computer power, how it's the cost of computer power, telling you that it's doubling every 2 years. This is the cost of genome sequencing. So back in 2001, it cost $100 million to sequence a human genome. Now, it's down around about $5,000 or $8,000 to sequence a human genome. It's gone from $100 million down to $8,000 in, what is it now, 15 years. So the rate of progress in genomics and genomic technologies and the cost is far outstripping the rate of pace of development in computers, which in itself is incredibly fast. And it's this technology that's allowing us to get to the genes much more quickly. We can actually focus down in and clone the genes and get perfect markers and isolate the genes out of genomes of things like wheat that have an enormous genome much faster, and it's only going to get quicker in the coming years.